Kids love trains, and for good reason. They're big, powerful, and loud. Trains are also very interesting to watch because there are many different kinds. And they come in all kinds of shapes and sizes. Some are powered by steam and are antiques that are very old. Others are sleek and modern. We're going to look at several different kinds of trains in this video. First, we'll take a peek at some freights as they move around in the train yard. Then we'll see a real trolley in operation and take a ride on a waterfront tour. Later, we're going to take a look at the future and visit the first and only full-size monorail operating in America. And then, as a special treat, we'll ride on a real old-fashioned steam engine as it chugs its way through the woods. If you like trains, you'll love the excitement of awesome trains. Freight trains are used to carry all kinds of heavy loads, and they are the workhorses of America's rails. They could be carrying cars from Detroit, coal from West Virginia, or wood from the Northwest. In fact, there is very little that can't be carried on a freight train. Today, trains aren't used as much as they once were. Trucks have taken over a lot of the train's business. But around the turn of the century, the train was by far the most common way of transporting anything heavy and bulky. But even today, the freight train is a common sight as it makes its way through the countryside, hauling many of the products we use in our homes. And the powerful diesel locomotives that pull them are an impressive sight. Let's look at some freight trains in action.
this train go? And could you tell us about the Talgo train?
Well, this train can go up to 79 miles an hour in this area that we're running the train on now. It has capability of going faster than that, but the track doesn't handle that equipment out here, so we can only go what the track will require us to go.
Could you tell us a little bit more about the Talgo train itself?
Well, it's a low-profile train. It's built to where it will bank into a curve, so you can take curves faster than what a normal train can. It has, it's all one unit. There's 12 cars, but it's all connected where you can't take it apart, and there's a total of 13 axles with it. It's a real nice train to handle. I really enjoy running it.
How long have you been an engineer?
20 years.
And what are some of the things that your job entails?
Oh, I just have to control the speed of the train, slow down for block signals, make sure we don't have any accidents. Just make it as comfortable a ride for the passengers as we can.
Can you tell us a little bit about this engine that we're in right now?
This is an SD40. This is a typical engine that Amtrak has. They have newer engines than this, but for the most part, this is their main source of power. It's not made for the Talgo. Their power for the Talgo train didn't work on our track, so they've got this unit and use it to pull the Talgo with it.
How fast is this engine pull?
Well, this engine can go up to 110 miles an hour.
What's the horsepower and all that?
It's a 3,000 horsepower engine. It's about 200 tons per weight.
And does it take a long time to stop this train once it gets going?
Oh boy. Under emergency circumstances, it takes probably about a third of a mile to a half a mile to stop this particular train, but it's an exceptional train for stopping. Other passenger trains would take probably anywhere from a half mile to 3/4 of a mile. Freight trains take up to a mile to stop. And that's, extreme situations. Controls, this is the forward and reverse, and this is your gas pedal, which they call the throttle. And this here is what they call the dynamic brake that takes the traction motors, which are electric, and converts them to generators to create a retarding force to slow the train down. And this is the brakes for the train and the brakes for the engine. And of course the whistle and bell. And this is the alerter for if something happens to me up here and I happen to die or whatever while I'm en route. This will stop the train after a period of about 30, 40 seconds.
How does that system work?
Well, if you don't do anything to the controls for a certain period of time, this will start flashing. And if you don't stop the flashing, it goes into a penalty application. I have to do this ordinarily, so we'll just go ahead and let it go through a penalty application.
Okay. What are some of the other?
Well, your headlight, and this is the heaters. This is for working on other railroads that have different safety systems. Speedometer, this is basically tells you how much power you're putting out for amperage and how much retarding force for brakes you're putting in when you're in dynamic. This is, the alerter's going off now, and if I'm running the train and I don't reset that, it'll go into a penalty application and stop the train by itself.
Okay. There's a sand button there.
Has to put sand on the rail, because when you're starting out at slow speed, you got a lot of tractive effort, and you put sand on for traction.
Trolley cars are one of the most interesting forms of rail transportation. During the 1920s, trolleys were very common in America, and many of the bigger cities had trolley cars running up and down their streets. At first, they were pulled by horses. Then, an electrically powered trolley system was invented by one of Thomas Edison's assistants. After that, they started to spring up all over the place. Trolleys are called what they are because they had a wheel that ran along the overhead electrical wires that powered them. That wheel was similar to a small four-wheeled wagon called a trawler, so they called it a trolley, and the name stuck. Today, you can still find trolleys in operation in some cities. San Francisco's are the most famous. The trolley you see here was built in 1927 in Australia. It runs along the waterfront in Seattle.
Well, we've been running these Melbourne trams here about 12 years now. Started in 1982. Stop and think. And started out just as a tourist attraction with two cars up and down the waterfront. And over the last 10 years or so, we've begun to do the unthinkable, and that's handling commuters. You see a wide number of them on a daily basis now. These trams are all measured in kilometers, seeing how they're out of Australia. So these will top out about 50 kilometers, which is what, about 35 miles an hour. Although the waterfront, we're limited to about 12 miles an hour in this particular area, and we get up to a light braking speed of about 18 miles an hour north of the market here.
What do you think is what's the best part about working on the trolleys?
Oh, by far the people that you meet. We get people from all around the world. Vast majority, of course, are tourists and are out to have a good time, so they're great to meet. Without the folks, it could be a very, very dull job just back and forth out here.
How many people does it take to run these trolleys?
Well, it takes two of us. There's a motorman and a conductor. I'm the conductor. The motorman runs up front. Most of the operators down here are the motormen or senior bus drivers from Metro Transit. Have anywhere from about 25 to 38 years seniority with us. The conductors were not operators. There are 6 conductors within Metro out of 3,000 bus drivers. So we feel kind of a unique position down here. Depending on who you talk to, we're either the elite or the black sheep of the family. So yeah, it's kind of unique being down here, being a conductor now of the system.
How long have you been driving one of the trolleys?
4 years now.
Huh.
Nice work.
How did you qualify to become a trolley driver?
Well, we take 4 days training, and it's a seniority pick. I work for the Metro bus system. You know, it's the whole county-wide system.
Do you enjoy your work so far?
Oh, love it down here. Yeah, nice people, tourists, everybody's laid back, you know.
What's the most interesting thing about driving the trolleys, do you think?
Oh, I've always liked the old trolleys. You know, I've been a trolley buff all my life. And my grandfather drove them years ago in Ireland, double-deckers, and I used to look over his shoulder. Never thought I'd be driving one 40-something years later, you know. Yeah, it's kind of nice.
Could you explain some of these controls down here for us?
Oh, sure. This is your... That locks everything. That's forward. That's reverse. See, it won't go anywhere in neutral. Now, this is your throttle. This is the air brake. To go, you go up one notch, let the brake off. To accelerate, you keep bringing it up. It's the old style controller, series parallel. Yeah, it's full speed now, see? And the coast, you just cut it off.
What did these trolleys run on?
600 volt DC.
And how fast can they go?
Oh, this particular one, about 40 miles an hour, but with this old track we've got here, we try to keep it about 30, 35.
Fantastic.
Well, they were built in Melbourne, Australia. This one here was built in 1924, and we got them in 1982, and we've got 6 cars. This one was rebuilt completely from the ground up. This was a scrap car, and they ran up in Australia until about 2 years ago. And that's how we got them. George Benson, the city councilman, decided he wanted waterfront streetcars, so he went to Australia and bought them and had them shipped here.
What's the construction like?
Well, they're solid steel frame, and it's teak and mahogany wood, Tasmanian mahogany, and very sturdy construction.
Are they easy to ride, and are they durable?
Oh, very durable. Well, this one's, what, 68, 69 years old, and it's better than a bus, I'd say. Of course, I'm prejudiced. I like streetcars.
Monorails look like the trains of the future. They're called monorails because they run on a one-rail track. You can't see the monorail's wheels because they're hidden underneath the train. This one runs on a 700-volt electrical system and can travel at 45 miles per hour. It runs in Seattle and is America's first and only full-sized commercial monorail. At peak running, the 2 trains on the system are capable of moving 7,000 passengers per hour. Some people think that this is what the transportation of the future will look like. Let's go for a ride on the monorail and talk with the crew.
Basically, it's fairly simple. Gear shift in the left side of the speed control. This is a dead man switch. It's a 3-position speed control. Bring it back to us as we gain speed. The third point of power, we reach approximately 45-50 miles an hour. Coast from there. Switch to our brake with the right hand. At a certain point on the rail, close to the end of the line, we'll enter into the dynamic portion of the brake. As that lets go, it drops itself out at 6 miles an hour. We continue on into air brake, slowing to a nice controlled stop. Basically, that's it for the controls. We have some minor controls here. These are the door controls, all 5 in the center. Control each side of the doors. The gate control for the Westlake Center. Dials up front, of course. Well, speedometer, first and foremost. We got the air pressure, brakes. Main reservoir is just hovering around 120. The white needles show that the air is out. As we bring the air in, as we release the air, brings our pressure up to an operating approximately 90 pounds of air pressure during operation.
Okay. Is this an electric? Does this run on electric motors, or what powers the trains?
Electricity. We have basically 8 electric motors, 1 motor for each set of 2 drive wheels. There's 4 drive wheels on each of the 4 cars. The whole system pulls about 700 volts.
If you ask most people what their favorite type of train is, they'll tell you it's an old steam engine. Steam-powered trains first got their start in America in 1827. That's when the Baltimore in Ohio was chartered. After that, the growth of railroads was very fast. By 1835, there were 200 railroad companies in America, and over 1,000 miles of track were laid across the East Coast. For over 100 years, the steam-powered train was the most common type on the tracks. But in the 1940s and 50s, the steam engine was replaced with the diesel locomotive. Today, steam-powered trains are mainly operated as tourist attractions. This engine is called a Porter, and it was built in 1924. Most of the early steam locomotives ran on wood or coal, but this Porter has been converted to an oil burner. The steam engine is a very old and reliable way of pulling a train. It works kind of like this. The fireman puts the coal or oil on the fire to heat the water in the boiler. When the water gets really hot, the steam from the water is used to make the engine go. One of the best things about an old steam engine is all the noise they make as they chug on down the tracks. Let's go for a ride on the Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad. Now let's look at a bunch of trains in operation.